Good evening, everyone. After an exciting series of conversations with industry trailblazers, we are back with a ninth episode of Masters of PR Live. And this time, we are diving into a topic that's reshaping the very core of a profession. No prizes for guessing. We are discussing today artificial intelligence. And who better to have this conversation with someone who has spent 2 decades at the forefront of brand building, strategic communications, and advocacy. And that's my friend Munavar Attari. From leading regional mandates at global agencies like Edelman and Fleishman Hillard to now advising clients in Riyadh on public policy, reputation management, and stakeholder trust, Munawar brings a unique blend of classic PR experience and futuristic view on tech. He's someone who has walked the corridors of power and innovation, and today we tap into that same very knowledge. Munawar, welcome to Masters of PR Live. Delighted to have you here.
Hey, thanks, bro. Thanks for having me. A long introduction, but I hope we both can
I hope you liked it.
find something useful.
And Right. Me and Munawar go a very long way. We used to work together in my first stint at R Factors at the technology practice. So technology PR probably he started a little before me. He was already into tech PR, and but later on, uh, I joined the team. Bro, let's begin. So let's start with the basics first. AI is a term that's thrown around a lot these days, but often misunderstood. How do you define AI and the buzzwords around it? What's really making sense to you in
See,
all this noise? Yeah.
I'm sure that many of us have thought about this question, in the recent past. The way I have developed kind of a mental map to help me understand artificial intelligence. I look at AI in three different buckets. One is pattern recognition, one is predictions, and one is production. So I think
Mm.
of three P's. Okay, patterns, prediction, and production. So production is the least, uh, in terms of its usage, but it is the most has the highest potential because production is what we talk about when we talk about Gen AI, generative AI. It's the production piece which we are talking about. But the other two P's, that is the patterns and predictions, have been with us for a very long time. All the recommendation engines, all the whatever we've been using as far as social media is concerned, how we get recommended certain things, all of that is has stayed with us and has been with us for over a decade now at least. So that's all artificial intelligence all along the way. But what's new and what is exciting is the last P, which is the production bit, where you are using certain tools to produce something, whether it is text, whether it is audio, whether it is video, whether it is multimodal, etc. So three different mental buckets. One mental bucket to plug these three P's is the way I kind of help myself understand this.
Interesting. Now let's come a little closer home from talk about AI from a communication lens. What's your understanding of AI's relevance in PR and communication beyond just automation?
Well, it's like saying, what 10, 15 years ago, what was the relevance of a Google search, or what is the
Mm,
relevance of,
mm,
office tools to our profession? I mean, as knowledge workers and as in the service industry, it is as useful and as relevant as anything else. It's not something, the way I look at it, it is something which helps us live our lives better or in different ways. Therefore, it's as relevant as anything else, like a mobile phone, like any technology around us. So it's helpful, resourceful, and useful and relevant all at the same time. Of course, we can discuss in terms of specifics, in terms of our individual roles, how things are changing. But of course, it is relevant as relevant, Google search or Yahoo search was for us 15 years ago.
understood. So it is said that AI will not replace professionals, but professionals who use AI will replace those who don't. On a very personal note, how has AI impacted your day-to-day work or the lives of people around you? Any practical shifts you've seen or adopted?
Okay, imagine this scenario. Okay, I get up in the morning.
Yeah.
I have a workflow that
Hmm.
I partially designed for myself, and someone helped me
Mm.
design it as well. It basically analyzes a select set of sources in terms of news, in terms of what's happening in the world. It summarizes it, it contextualizes it, and it converts it into an audio file, and it sends me a
Mm.
15-minute audio to listen to while I'm reaching my workplace. So
Right.
instead of instead of me going reaching office and going through multiple RSS feeds, reading through multiple newsletters, going through publications, and as you and I may have done all our lives, I exactly know what I need to know in 10 minutes in terms of a summary of maybe something which has gone through 80 or 100 different sources and tells me exactly what I need to know. So that's something which I find very useful, very powerful, and that's what AI has enabled us to do. There is a lot of automation there, but there is also the
Mm.
production part, which I said, which
Mm.
is one very resourceful way that my life has
Mm.
changed. I know what I need to know even before I've reached office. In that sense, just one practical example that I can immediately think of.
So we'll talk more about how it impacts your work as well. So you worked with the best in the business today. You worked with 2020, you worked with R Factors, Edelman to Fleischmann Hillard. What is the shift you see in agency life with the rise of AI? Are we seeing real change or these are just buzz?
Well, yes and no. There's a lot of AI snake oil as well in terms of
Hmm.
everything. I mean, 2 years ago everything was blockchain, and everything was Web3, and everything was dot Bitcoin and so on, whether
Mm.
it was or not. And the same thing you see with AI as well. Everything is dot AI today. So
Yeah.
all startups want to say that they are AI. All workflows we want to say that they are AI powered and so on. I think 80% of it always existed with us for
Mm.
several years, but the 20% is the game changer. And while a lot of agencies, a lot of clients as well are aware of what are the possibilities, not that all have been able to implement it on a day-to-day basis, and that's because of several reasons. You and I would remember conversations 15 years ago when clients were debating whether to allow YouTube in office or not, or whether to allow
Mm.
Facebook in office or not. Okay, we
Mm.
we've seen that movie before, right? So the same thing is happening with artificial intelligence and conversation around it as well, where clients are debating, okay, here is a technical possibility, but should we, shouldn't we? How much should we? How far do we go? How do we walk? Do we run? Do we crawl, etc.? So keeping those kind of things in mind, I've seen recent agencies in the past being at different levels of adoption curve, the same way that the way we are in our personal lives, right? And you remember the how technology gets adopted, right? There would be a certain set of people who would be early adopters, and there would be laggards who would come at the end. So agencies and professionals who are ahead of the curve are the ones who are already seeing the benefits in terms of how they're adopting it.
Let's get in more deeper. Where it is exactly being used, and you've seen both markets now. You've seen the Riyadh market as well as the Indian market. What kind of tools? Let's come to tools. What kind of tools are being really being used? To what extent? And from here, where do you see, we at the agency side or the corporate communication side, how do we further this use of different kind of tools that is available to us right now?
Well, I'll give you a general answer, and then I'll be a little bit more specific in terms of
Sure.
what Edelman does or what my agency currently does. The general answer around that is people are experimenting with uh, all the front end conversational tools like a Gemini or a DeepSeek or a Chat GPT and so on. And that's the low hanging fruit, right? Getting content created, whether it is
Sure.
text or whether it is audio video. That's an easy part to do. The tougher part is how we can use that as one element and automate our entire workflow in a larger part of our workflows. That is where uh, at Edelman we are experimenting a lot. There is a complete focus and diktat from the top for us to adopt AI at a larger level. Of course, there are regulatory issues, there are transparency conversations, what can be done, what cannot be done, how can we involve our clients in terms of what we do, and so on. But broadly, we are moving in the direction quite rapidly. And I'll give you a couple of examples in my personal life how I've been using it. Personal life, in a sense that, of course, how it helps me in a professional manner as well. So, for example, I use make.com a lot, which is an automation tool at the end of the day.
Hmm.
But what it does
Hmm.
is that it helps you automate your entire flow. So let's say you've done research, and that research is fed into, let's say, a large language model. It processes and provides you an output. That output is fed into some other chatbot, and it provides you an output which probably you may use it to generate campaigns, and then to generate campaigns you may feed it to a different application which provides you with some ideas and so on. So it's not it's so as I said, the production piece is fitting in between, but the entire thing is the automation or the pattern recognition workflow that we kind of use a lot, and I kind of experiment that with I experiment with it a lot on a daily basis.
Workflow automation is probably easier with, say, a tech company usage. How actually, that gets done with the PR agencies where, content creation, I understand content creation, if people are using tools left, right, and center to generate contents, to clean the content, and so on. But we have a different kind of a workflow from pitching stories to the journalists to identifying stories and then measuring and monitoring and so on. So where exactly this workflow automation is actually being seen? You said you've been experimenting with some. Where do they fit in exactly?
Okay, let me give you one more example
Mm,
from a recent experiment that I did. Is
okay.
we were planning to pitch a story to a particular journalist. Okay,
Mm, mm,
based on imagine you worked with that journalist or you interacted with that journalist for the last
mm,
5, 8, 10 years, and based on your
mm,
experience, you may be able to say as to what will or will not work with that particular journalist based on
mm,
what publication she currently belongs to or he currently belongs to, and what
mm,
they would want to do. But that's coming because you have 8, 10 years of experience, maybe dealing or maybe more with that individual
correct.
or that publication. Now, that can be
Correct.
translated very easily to a junior person as well. All that needs to be done
Mm,
is take 100, stories of that particular journalist, feed it into a
mm,
large language model that will tell you as to what are the general kind of stories that that individual seems to be pursuing, right? And
mm,
based on that, it could give you a few recommendations in terms of that this is what is likely to work with this particular journalist. This is what likely to work with the journalist, and because this is your client, probably this is what an area could be for you to pursue further. Now that's a very powerful starting point for someone who spent 2 years in the profession, right? So you can imagine something that you would bring maybe 15 plus years of experience or 20 years of experience. Now a person who has 2 years of experience or 3 years of experience can attempt, to aspire to compete with you or collaborate with you at that level, which I find it very powerful and completely a game changing aspect of what artificial intelligence can offer.
That's very interesting thought. You spoke about the recommendation engine kind of a thing where you get to know, what will attract that journalist from the hundreds of stories that probably he must have done, and maybe, what will he be more tuned towards finding negatives, or he generally does positive kind of a story. I think with that, uh, there is another thing that comes in about measurement. Is AI being now used? I know there have been some experiments with a lot of measurement agencies, but are they actually being used in servicing right now in your market?
Well, not, yes, I mean, of course, metrics and measurement is big, and it has always been big. But how much of that you can pass off as purely because of is a different conversation altogether. Okay, because a lot of things that were always possible may now finally be getting adopted in different markets, but that does not
Right.
mean that 5 years ago these things were not possible. So one is the adoption curve itself. But coming back to the point that you made, look at the recent US tariff announcements.
Mm,
Okay, many clients wanted
mm,
intelligence on how
mm.
this has been
Yeah, yeah.
perceived and how this has been
Mm.
reported. Now, what
Right.
what ideally you would do? It's a very resource and time intensive work that ideally you would have ended up doing in terms of analyzing hundreds of articles, perhaps manually doing keyword analysis, and then probably making some sense of how this, the announcement has been reported in different sections of the press. That's something which can be done in less than an hour. Okay.
Correct.
Uh, let's look at a large. Let's look at any, very experienced or celebrated commentator, media commentator in the world. Let's say from Wall Street Journal. Let's name any particular individual, or from India, name someone who is a celebrity journalist. People want to know what his or her opinion is on this particular topic. It's so easy, you know,
Mm.
to take all that has been said on this particular subject and analyze it. And it's not that it couldn't be done earlier, but now anyone can do it and everyone can do it. So that flattens the curve a lot, and it brings a lot of senior, junior, middle level people on the same level playing field. And there is a lot of economics that you can, discuss basis this. There's something which could be done probably by a very senior person who's probably tasked and experienced to do something like this over a period of time, can be done by any smart individual with a little bit of effort, almost in less than a few hours.
Agree. Let's come back to content again. The moment ChatGPT came in, everybody jumped onto it and started generating content. And initially, people just used to, through some prompt, get the content out and ship it to the client. And that's
Yeah.
probably created a kind of uh, you know, kind of an understanding that ChatGPT content is really not worth it. But today, that has changed a lot. If you
Mhm.
actually, learn prompt engineering, if you know to write prompt, uh, you get a far better kind of a content that you can really go ahead and use it. But when you send that content to a client, uh, some clients are probably not very happy to use the chat GPT generated content. Will this change, or you think there has to be a heavy level of human involvement there, and humans has to be involved? Why are clients not ready to accept it, that it's okay even if it is generated by AI tools, as long as it makes sense?
There are two parts to this, question. One is generic AI adoption curve.
Yeah.
Different individuals, different brands, and different companies are at different, different stages of the adoption curve. So that's one answer to the second is in terms of transparency, ethics, and proper governance around use of artificial intelligence and proper disclosures. So you have to be very
Mm.
careful and work very closely with your clients in terms of how it is being used. If you go back 15 years, the same
Mm.
question people used to ask, "Oh, have you Googled this or what?" At one point in time,
Mm.
it all started with a stigma, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and then we all came around saying that now we say that, oh, this is something so simple you couldn't even Google it about. You see how the adoption curve, how the entire circle
Yeah.
we've
Mm.
shifted from it something being stigma to something being part and parcel of our daily life. And I kind of feel that the same thing happens with all technologies, and the same thing will happen in artificial intelligence as well. That right now is that you can say, in the range of being some sort of a stigma, that, oh, this is not real work because you just kind of produce this, using an artificial intelligence bot or something. Okay, but the technology itself is improving, and we as human beings are also, our experience in terms of the use is also enhancing and improving over a period of time. So both are getting better at the same time, and the same thing has happened with all technologies, as you can see, right? So in a few years time, I think we will be ahead of this, and the stigma attached to this will not exist within agencies as well as on the client side.
Hope so. Let's move into the responsible side of AI now. From our perspective, from PR professional perspective, what's the limit of being responsible when it comes to AI in the PR framework?
I think the first and the most important thing is transparency in terms of how it is
Yeah.
being used, what are proper
Mm.
disclosures, uh, at a macro level, and as well as at a agency client level as well, because
Yeah.
there are a lot of copyright issues, there are a lot of gray areas, which, to be honest, nobody has really been able to crack it or solve it yet, because
Mm.
you know that technology moves much faster than what policy can ever catch up. So
Yep.
technology keeps evolving, and policy, how the do's and don'ts kind of keep playing a catch up game. right? And by the time you solve, the do's and don'ts or a policy answer for this particular, goalpost, the goalpost has moved somewhere else, and now you're, always trying to play catch up. So that's nature of technology, especially with artificial intelligence, which is moving at a very non-linear pace. It's not like, version 2 is incrementally better than version 1. Version 2 is, you know 10x, 20x, 100x better than, the previous version. So it's moving so rapidly that, policy will always regulation and policy is always playing catch up. And I don't mean regulation policy at the government level, but even at our level, in terms of how we use it and how we disclose it and how our clients understand that how we are using it. So I think it's a situation where we have to work very closely with our clients. We have to disclose things on a consistent basis, and agree on a certain set of rules with clients and with whoever is the final consumer of what we are producing. As long as those things are ticked off, and it's like always, like everything, right? Even today, whatever content you're producing, you need proper disclosures from where the content is coming from, what is the references that you're using, who's the original owner of that content, even images. I mean, we had this issue 10 years ago in terms of using stock images, right?
Mm.
Still
Yeah.
people make mistakes when they're using stock images. So I'm just trying to, simplify it, but I think that's what it boils down to, that as long as your buyer is comfortable in terms of how you're providing a particular service, I think it should be good.
Let me throw a very tricky question to you. Now, imagine a scenario where a spokesperson of a company may not be very comfortable speaking in front of the camera, and he creates his AI avatar using Agent and say 11 Labs. And it's not him speaking, but a
Yeah.
script given to him and his avatar speaking. Is it responsible AI or it's not? I mean,
if
in
it is
TM.
if it is if it is disclosed properly that this is what it is,
Mhm.
then I think it's just intelligent use of technology. Why not?
So
We've
disclosure
seen
is a
recent
must.
disclosure is a must. You see, recently, not recently, in a few years ago, you've seen very successful AI powered consumer campaigns, right?
Mm.
Using celebrities, voices, and so on. They all turned out to be pretty good and pretty innovative, and there were a lot of conversation around it. Proper disclosures is a must. If you're disclosing it properly, I personally don't see any issue with that.
Okay. Great. So AI is not really a magic phone, but it's a very powerful tool if wielded with intent and understanding. That's what you said right now. And nowadays there are constant doomsday predictions around AI as well. So what's your take? How much of it do you think is realistic, and how much is fear mongering?
Well, I think we all are at a different levels of an arms race. Countries are competing with countries, companies are competing with other companies, and agencies with other agencies, and at an individual level, we are competing with other individuals in terms of how well and how fast and how better we can use this technology. So it's all boiling down to, if I don't, then someone else will, and someone else
Mm.
will use it better than I, and will get right. In this race, you're not thinking about, ethics the way we should be thinking about ethics, as to what it's not always what can be done, it's also about what should be done, right? And it's
Correct.
true with all technologies, and so it is with this as well. So stepping back and answering this deep philosophical question as to, okay, this can be done, but is it something which is in the larger interest of humanity, or people around, etc., is a question which will never get answered enough, because technology is moving so fast and everybody wants to first master it and then think about these kind of things. Therefore, there is a real chance of this going horribly wrong in our personal lives, the way we use it, etc. Now, we after 10 years of social media use, we know that it is beneficial, but it has also created several other issues for us in personal and
Yes.
professional lives, right? And the same is true with a technology like this as well, which this is first time in humanity where you have something which, learns on its own and creates something on its own.
Yeah.
So so that seems to be quite scary when you play out certain scenarios. which which felt like, science fiction a few years ago, are have come true. So today, what seems to be science fiction and something which will never be true, I I feel that is going to be true at some point in the near future. Therefore, doomsday predictions, I think all doomsday predictions have almost equal probability to come to pass, if proper checks and balances are not been put
Hmm.
at a larger level.
Interesting. So we need to constantly keep ourselves updated, and staying updated in this fast-moving space is tough. How do you personally stay informed about the latest in AI and tech and communications in general?
I think it's all learning by doing. If you spend some
Mm,
time on a consistent basis trying to play with these tools, try to learn. It's the good old saying, right? No matter how much you read about swimming or driving, you may read 10 books on swimming, but 1 hour of swimming will teach you much more than 10 books would teach you. So I don't discount theory. I'm a big believer in theory and reading and things like these. But certain things have a huge practical element to it, and this is one of those things. I think I think actually starting to do certain things on your own and getting yourself on a particular journey, without and the journey itself is a learning process. You're not trying to get somewhere, because by the time you decide that you've reached somewhere, the world has moved somewhere else. Therefore, learning by doing is something which I strongly believe in, even if it is,
mm.
20 minutes, half an hour on a daily basis.
Nice. Let's end on a forward-looking note. What advice would you give young professionals stepping into the world of PR? You already spoke about learning and doing, but what should they do, especially when it comes to navigating the entire age of AI? What all things they should do?
I think again, people when people start themselves put themselves on a learning journey, on the learning
Mm,
path, they realize that certain things would be unique to themselves.
mm,
Everybody will have their own personal journey and personal experience in terms of how they learn and adapt to certain these kind of things. So starting embarking upon the journey, I mean, you and I may be driving through the same road, using the same car at the same time, but our experiences will be very different in terms of how we reach from
mm.
point A to point B, and it is very similar to that as well. So I think, yes, there are certain things common where we can learn from each other's experiences, but unless someone decides to equip themselves, empower and enable themselves on an individual level, I think it's very difficult to progress, especially in the kind of environment that we live in.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for such a grounded and insightful conversation. From breaking down myths around AI to offering tangible examples and advice, this session has been incredibly valuable. To our viewers, if you have enjoyed this session, do like, share, and drop your biggest takeaway in the comments below. Don't forget, all our episodes of Masters of PR Live are available at wikipedia.com and also on Spotify under the channel Wikipedia Brandcast. We'll see you again next Tuesday, 7:30 p.m. with another thoughtful leader. Until then, stay curious, stay relevant, and keep shaping conversations that matter. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Munavar.
Thanks you. Thank you so much, Vikram, for having me. Bye bye.